Some places, you hear the name and a single image flashes in your mind, a black and white photo, a film reel. For many, Indochina means war. It means helicopters rising over rice paddies, soldiers wading through muddy water, political turmoil that defined a generation. But that's just one chapter of a much longer, more complicated story. It's the easy, dramatic part. The real story, the one that lives and breathes on the streets today, is about what happens when two completely different worlds are forced to live together. It's a story about power, yes, but it's also about food, buildings, language, and the million tiny ways people adapt, resist, and create something entirely new from the wreckage. The French didn't just come to Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos to run a government from afar. They came to stay. They brought their architects, their chefs, their priests, and their school teachers. They carved out their own little pieces of Paris in the middle of a sweltering tropical heat. They wanted to reshape this land in their own image, to create something familiar in a place that was anything but. This wasn't just about control, it was about culture. They believed their way was the civilized way. And whether you see that as arrogant, destructive, or a strange mix of both, its impact is undeniable. It's a ghost that still walks the boulevards of Hanoi and haunts the cafes of Saigon. This story isn't a simple one of good versus evil, of oppressor and oppressed. It's messier than that. It's about the quiet, everyday transactions. It's about the Vietnamese baker who first put pâté on a baguette, the Cambodian student learning to write their language in a new script, the Lao artist who picked up a European paintbrush. These are the moments where history really happens, not in the grand halls of power, but in the kitchens, the classrooms, and the art studios. It's in the small personal choices people make when their world is turned upside down. This is where you find the soul of a place. We're going to peel back the layers. Forget the war documentaries for a minute. We're going to walk the streets, smell the food, and listen to the echoes of the past. We'll look at the buildings that stand as monuments to a bygone era and taste the flavors born from a culinary collision. This is the story of Indochina beyond the battlefield. It's a journey into the heart of a culture that was bent but never broken. A culture that took the tools of its colonizer and used them to build something uniquely, stubbornly, and beautifully its own. It's a story that's still being written in every bowl of pho and every cup of strong sweet coffee. You walk through certain parts of Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City, what they used to call Saigon, and you could almost forget where you are. For a second, you might think you're in a sleepy provincial town in the south of France. You see wide, tree-lined boulevards, grand opera houses, and stately government buildings with yellow ochre walls and green shutters. This was all by design. The French didn't just build forts and administrative offices, they tried to replicate the very soul of their homeland. They brought Baron Haussmann's vision for Paris, a city of grand avenues and public spaces, and dropped it right into the heart of Southeast Asia. In Hanoi, the French Quarter is the most obvious testament to this ambition. The Hanoi Opera House is a spitting image of the Palais Garnier in Paris, a ridiculously opulent piece of neo-Baroque architecture plopped down thousands of miles from its inspiration. Around it, villas with wrought iron balconies and manicured gardens line the streets. They built post offices that look like grand European train stations and cathedrals that would be right at home in Normandy. This wasn't just about comfort, it was a statement of power and permanence. It was a way of saying, we are here, and this is our world now. The local tube houses and winding alleyways were pushed aside for a more orderly and civilized grid. Saigon, the pearl of the Far East, was perhaps the crown jewel of this effort. The French poured immense resources into making it a showcase of colonial prestige. The Central Post Office, designed by Gustave Eiffel's firm, is a masterpiece of colonial industrial art, with its soaring vaulted ceiling and old-world maps painted on the walls. Just across the square stands the Notre Dame Cathedral Basilica of Saigon, built with red bricks imported all the way from Marseille. These buildings were meant to awe and intimidate. They were symbols of a foreign god and a foreign government, solid and unyielding against the tropical humidity. But the climate fought back. The French quickly learned that a Parisian apartment building wasn't suited for monsoon season, so they adapted. They combined their architectural styles with local wisdom. They added airy verandas to encourage airflow, louvered shutters to block the harsh sun while letting in the breeze, and high ceilings to let the heat rise. This fusion created a new style, the Indochine style. It was French in its bones, the symmetry, the grand proportions. But it was Southeast Asian in its skin, learning to breathe in the thick, humid air. These buildings are a physical record of that compromise, a dialogue between two worlds carved in plaster and brick. Food tells a story. It tells you about the land, the people, the history. And in Vietnam, the story it tells is one of incredible resilience and creativity. The French brought their culinary obsessions with them: crusty bread, rich butter, strong coffee, and savory pâté. At first, these were foods for the colonizers, a taste of home in a foreign land. The locals, for the most part, stuck to their rice, their noodles, their fish sauce. But over time, the lines began to blur. Ingredients crossed the kitchen divide, and something magical started to happen. The culinary world of Indochina was about to be turned on its head. The most iconic example, of course, is the bánh mì. It's a perfect symbol of this cultural fusion. The bread is all French, a light, airy baguette, a legacy of the colonial bakeries. But what goes inside is pure Vietnam. Instead of ham and cheese, it's stuffed with grilled pork, pickled carrots and daikon, fresh cilantro, chili, and a smear of pâté. It's the best of both worlds in a single, delicious package. It's a sandwich that takes a French staple and makes it something entirely new, something vibrant and unapologetically Vietnamese. It's a culinary act of rebellion and adaptation, all for less than a couple of bucks. Then there's the coffee. The French introduced coffee cultivation to the highlands of Vietnam, hoping to create a cash crop. They also brought their café culture, the ritual of sitting for hours, sipping a dark brew, watching the world go by. The Vietnamese took to it immediately, but they made it their own. Instead of milk and sugar, they used sweetened condensed milk, a practical choice, as fresh milk was scarce and spoiled quickly in the heat. The result is café suaja, a thick, sweet, incredibly potent iced coffee that will jolt you awake like nothing else. It's the French ritual, remixed for the Vietnamese palate and climate. This fusion goes deeper than just a few famous dishes. The French introduced vegetables like potatoes, carrots, and onions, which are now essential ingredients in many Vietnamese stews and soups, like bo co or beef stew. The use of butter and wine in some high-end Vietnamese cooking is a direct nod to French techniques. It's a culinary dialogue that's been going on for over a century. The French brought the ingredients and the rulebook. The Vietnamese tore out the pages they didn't like, scribbled in the margins, and created a cuisine that is arguably more exciting and dynamic than what the colonizers left behind. It's a testament to the idea that the best food often comes from unexpected places. When you want to fundamentally change a society, you don't just build new roads, you change the way people think and speak. The French understood this perfectly. Their mission was not just economic or political. It was, in their eyes, a mission civilisatrice, a civilizing mission. And the primary tool for this mission was education. They established a system of Franco-vernacular schools across Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. The goal was twofold: create a small, French-speaking local elite who could help run the colonial administration, and enlighten the masses with the perceived superiority of French culture and knowledge. The curriculum was a world away from the traditional, Confucian-based education that had existed for centuries. Out went the classical Chinese texts and moral philosophy. In came French language, French history, and European science. For a young Vietnamese, Lao, or Cambodian student, going to a French school meant entering a completely different universe. It was a place where success depended on mastering the language and customs of the colonizers. This created a new social class, a group of people who were often disconnected from their own traditions but not fully accepted by the French, existing in a strange limbo between two worlds. One of the most profound and lasting changes was the widespread adoption of Quoc Ngữ, the Romanized script for the Vietnamese language. This script was actually developed by a French Jesuit missionary, Alexandre de Rhodes, back in the 17th century. But it was the colonial administration that aggressively promoted it to replace the traditional, character-based script, Chu Nom. Their motive was practical. It was much easier for French officials to learn and for the population to achieve basic literacy in. This decision had massive consequences. It severed the link for many Vietnamese to their classical literature and historical texts. But it also made literacy accessible to the masses in a way it had never been before. This new script became an unlikely tool for the nationalist movement. While the French had hoped it would help them control the population, Vietnamese intellectuals and revolutionaries used Quoc Nhu to print newspapers, pamphlets, and political tracts, spreading ideas of independence far and wide. The language of the colonizer, simplified and applied to the local tongue, became a weapon of resistance. It's a perfect irony. Today, Quoc Ngu is the official script of Vietnam, a fundamental part of its national identity. It is a legacy of colonialism that has been completely reappropriated, a testament to the unpredictable ways history unfolds. Before the French arrived, art in Indochina was, deeply rooted in tradition. It was decorative, religious, and followed these strict conventions that had been passed down through generations. You can see it in the intricate carvings on a temple in Angkor, or maybe the delicate lacquerware of Hanoi. It was an art of skill and devotion, not really about individual expression. The French, however, brought with them a completely different concept of what art could be. They introduced the idea of the artist as an individual genius, the easel, oil paints, and, well, the Western academic traditions of perspective, anatomy, and realism. In 1925, the French founded the École supérieure des beaux-arts de l'Indochine in Hanoi. This institution became a crucible where two artistic worlds collided. French teachers trained young Vietnamese artists in the techniques of European painting. They taught them how to render light and shadow, to capture a likeness in a portrait, and to compose a scene with a clear, vanishing point. For the first time, Vietnamese artists were encouraged to paint scenes from everyday life. A woman selling fruit in the market, a farmer in a rice paddy, or the quiet interior of a home. Subjects that, honestly, were previously considered unworthy of art. But the students didn't just copy their French masters. They began to blend these new techniques with their own cultural heritage. The most remarkable innovation was the modernization of silk and lacquer painting. Artists like Nguyen Phan Chan took the traditional medium of painting on silk, which was often flat and decorative, and applied Western principles of composition and realism to it. The result was something entirely new. Paintings with a uniquely dreamy, ethereal quality, yet grounded in a recognizable reality. They were unmistakably Vietnamese in their soul, but they spoke a visual language that the West could understand. This fusion, created a golden age of Vietnamese modern art in the 1930s and 40s. Artists like To Ngoc Van, Le Pho, and Mai Trung Tu created works that were celebrated both at home and in Paris. They painted Vietnamese landscapes and figures, but with a post-impressionist sensibility. They took the tools of the colonizer, the oil paints, the easels, the very idea of a painting, and used them to express a deeply personal and national identity. Their art wasn't a rejection of tradition or a blind imitation of the West. It was a conversation, a synthesis. It was proof that even in a relationship defined by power, beauty, and genuine creation can emerge. As the sun sets over Saigon, the city doesn't just cool down, it transforms. The ghosts of its past seem to emerge with the shadows. During the day, it's a modern metropolis, a chaotic ballet of motorbikes and commerce. But at night, you can still feel the presence of its two former lives, the vibrant, freewheeling Pearl of the Far East and the quiet, traditional Vietnamese town it was built upon. The French didn't just build buildings, they introduced a new rhythm to urban life, a concept of public leisure and nightlife that mingled with, and sometimes clashed against, local customs. The French brought the idea of the apéritif, the pre-dinner drink, and the culture of sitting in sidewalk cafes to see and be seen. Rooftop bars, once the exclusive domain of colonial officials and wealthy merchants, became a fixture of the city's social landscape. Places like the Hotel Continental Saigon, famously featured in Graham Greene's E, were centers of power, gossip, and intrigue. Here, French officers, journalists, and spies would sip their pastis and look down on the bustling streets below. This culture of public drinking and socializing was a world away from the more private, family-centric social life of traditional Vietnam. Down on the streets, a different world existed. The alleyways, or were the true heart of the Vietnamese city. These narrow, labyrinthine passages were, and still are, where real life happens. They are communities unto themselves, filled with food stalls, small shops, and families living their lives in close quarters. While the French were sipping wine on their grand boulevards, the locals were gathering on low plastic stools in the Iari, sharing bowls of noodles and glasses of, that's fresh beer. This was a parallel world, existing right alongside the colonial city, but operating by its own set of rules. Today, these two worlds have bled into one another. You see young Saigonese enjoying cocktails in chic bars that occupy old colonial villas, their conversations mixing Vietnamese and English. You see tourists and locals alike flocking to the alleyways, seeking out the authentic flavors of the street. The city's nightlife is a hybrid, a mix of French-inspired leisure and Vietnamese communal energy. You can start your evening with a glass of Bordeaux in a quiet air-conditioned wine bar and end it on a plastic stool in a noisy alley, sweating and laughing over a plate of grilled seafood. This is the nightly negotiation of Saigon's identity, a city forever caught between its two histories. Nothing says progress and control quite like a railroad. For the French in Indochina, the railway was a massive undertaking, a steel artery designed to pump resources out of the interior and move troops and administrators across the vast, often hostile territory. The Trans-Indochinois, the ambitious line intended to connect Saigon and Hanoi, was the centerpiece of this project. It was a monumental feat of engineering, cutting through dense jungles, across wide rivers, and over mountainous terrain. It was built with local labor, often forced under brutal conditions. The railway fundamentally altered the landscape and the economy. It linked remote regions to the port cities, allowing for the efficient exploitation of resources like rubber, coal, and rice. Towns and cities sprouted up along the tracks, their fortunes tied to the rhythm of the arriving and departing trains. For the French, it was a tool of unification and administration, a way to shrink the map and impose order on a sprawling colony. The journey from north to south, which once took weeks or even months by sea or Mandarin roads, could now be done in about 40 hours. It was a tangible symbol of French power, stretching over 1,000 miles. But for the Vietnamese, the railroad was a double-edged sword. It was a source of employment, yes, but it was also a symbol of their subjugation. The tracks were laid by the sweat and blood of their countrymen. The finest carriages were reserved for the French, while the locals were crammed into third-class wagons. The railway wasn't built for their convenience. It was built to serve the colonial machine. It connected the country geographically, but it also reinforced the social divisions between the rulers and the ruled. The whistle of the locomotive was the sound of a new, imposed order. After the French were gone, the railway took on a new meaning. During the Vietnam War, the line, now known as the Reunification Express, was a strategic target, bombed and broken in countless places. Rebuilding it after 1975 was a powerful symbol of national unity, of stitching the war-torn country back together. Today, traveling on that same line is a journey through history. You rattle along tracks laid by the French, past landscapes scarred by war, through a country that is now finally its own. The railway, once a tool of colonial control, has become a thread in the fabric of modern Vietnamese identity, a moving monument to a century of turmoil and endurance. Decades after the last French official packed his bags and left, the legacy of the colonial era is not something you just read about in history books. It's tangible. You can touch it, taste it, and see it on every street corner. The influence is etched into the very fabric of daily life in Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. It's in the architecture that defines the old quarters of their cities, the food that locals and tourists line up for, and the words they use every day. This isn't a history that is dead and gone, it is a living, breathing part of the present. Think about the simple act of getting a coffee. You might be sitting in a café in Luang Prabang, Laos, housed in a beautifully preserved French colonial shophouse. You order a café lao, strong and sweet with condensed milk, a direct descendant of the coffee culture the French introduced. You might have a croissant or a small pastry with it, baked in an oven, whose design was brought over a century ago. You are participating in a ritual that is a direct product of that historical collision. It's not French, and it's not purely Lao. It's something new that was born from the encounter. The legacy is also linguistic. In Vietnamese, words for cheese, io from butter, from and bread, with deriving from, are all echoes of French. The same is true for many technical and administrative terms. While the nationalist movements rightly sought to reclaim their own languages, these borrowed words remain, like little linguistic fossils, reminders of a time when another language held all the power. They are a practical, everyday acknowledgement of a shared if complicated history. Ultimately, the French colonial legacy is a story of unintended consequences. The French built schools to create compliant administrators, but those schools also educated the revolutionaries who would overthrow them. They introduced the Roman alphabet to simplify control, but it became a tool for mass communication and national unity. They brought their food and culture to create a home away from home, but it ended up sparking a culinary revolution. The story of French Indochina is a powerful reminder that culture is not a one-way street. It flows, it merges, and it changes in ways that no one, not even the most powerful empire, can fully predict or control. So where does that leave us? Standing on a street corner in Hanoi, the smell of grilling pork from a banh mi cart mixing with the exhaust from 1,000 motorbikes. We're in a place that refuses to be a simple museum piece. The past isn't cordoned off behind velvet ropes here. It's alive, messy, and constantly being reinvented. The French colonial period was, for the people who lived through it, a period of immense hardship, oppression, and loss. But what grew in the cracks of that system is a story of human ingenuity that is impossible not to admire. The cities themselves are the greatest evidence of this. They are not French cities, nor are they the cities that existed before the French arrived. They are something else, a hybrid born of conflict and cohabitation. A grand French opera house stands proudly, but its steps are now a popular spot for local teenagers to practice skateboarding. A colonial villa, once home to a French rubber plantation owner, is now a bustling Po restaurant, its elegant rooms filled with the steam and clatter of a Vietnamese kitchen. The physical structures remain, but their soul has been reclaimed. This is the beautiful, complicated truth of post-colonial cultures everywhere. People take what is forced upon them and they make it their own. They adopt, adapt, and innovate. They take a baguette and stuff it with pickles. They take an academic painting style and apply it to silk. They take a foreign script and use it to declare their own independence. It's a process that is neither purely resistance nor purely acceptance, but a complex dance between the two. It's how culture survives. It's how people endure. The story of French influence in Indochina is not a simple tale of dominance. It's a reminder that history is never a monologue. It's a conversation. Sometimes it's an argument, sometimes it's a whisper, but it's always two-sided. The French left their mark, no doubt about it. But the people of Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos had the last word. They took the pieces left behind and built something new, something that is entirely their own. And that story is far more interesting than any war. You just have to know where to look, and more importantly, where to eat.